would like to make this video to discuss why I left the Mormon Church and just talk a little bit about my journey through that. And I will try to make it as brief as possible, but there is quite a bit to share. So, yeah, I'd like to talk about how I got into the church and why I decided to leave and where I'm at now. So I first joined the church, or started investigating it officially in September of 2016. And what had happened was, well, when I was in high school, I went to live with my dad and stepmom in another state. And while I was there, my mom and stepdad and younger siblings joined the Mormon Church. And, I didn't really know much about it. And then, like when I would visit at my mom's, sometimes this was like when I was in high school and then like early college years, sometimes she would have the missionaries over. And at first I was like, I really wanted no part of them. I thought they were weird, and I would just like hide from them. Like when they came over one time, I hid upstairs, and they were there for like a really long time, having a long visit, and I was really thirsty, but I would not go downstairs and get a drink until they left. And then sometimes my mom would try to get me to go to church with her, and usually I'd say no, but once in a while I went, and everybody was always very kind and welcoming. And once I was there at the service, I'm like, well, this isn't as strange as I thought it would be. And so then when I was in my early years of adulthood, I ended up, like, I would be more open to talking with the missionaries, talking to members of the church, attending church with my mom, and I actually started to like it a little bit. And so then I actually started investigating the church and meeting with some sister missionaries, and um, then I kind of just quit doing it. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to do this. There was just a few reasons why I didn't. One of them, they were more like minor reasons, I guess, like the whole no coffee or tea thing. I thought that was really silly, and I really enjoy coffee. And then also, I had a problem with the priesthood authority thing, that women couldn't have priesthood. I thought it was very sexist at the time, and that also the fact that like black men could not have the priesthood until 1978. So those were some reasons why I decided not to join. And then I had tried a couple Christian churches here and there, tried out a few different ones, and then I just kind of gave up on religion or Christianity, and I was kind of like agnostic. I didn't know what I believed in, and I thought maybe I was a Unitarian for a little bit. I'm like, oh, these beliefs sound kind of nice, but I really didn't know. Um, and so a few years passed after that, and then I ended up moving to a new town, and my husband and I were just starting a divorce, and it was just a very rough, just vulnerable time in my life. And I was in a new town where I didn't know anybody, on my own for the first time since becoming an adult. Um, and so I had gone straight from living at home to living in a dorm to then living with my boyfriend, who then became my husband. And so within 2 weeks of moving and getting my own place, some missionaries knock on the door. And I was like, this has got to be a sign. Right when I moved to this town, they knock on this door. This church is meant to be in my life. And so then I became open to investigating it again. And I became friends with a lot of the members of the church, and everyone was just so kind and welcoming, and I didn't feel so alone. And so I'm like, this really just must be a sign it's all meant to be. And so I ended up getting baptized and joined, and my mom was like really excited that to hear now I was joining the Mormon Church. And things were fine and good. And then about 6 months in, I started to hear some things that troubled me a little. There were, before the 6 months in, there were a couple things where I heard like members make a comment about when we become gods. And I'm like, I just kind of brushed it off. It was like I put on blinders to some of the things I would hear because I'm like, I love the people here and they're so kind. And so I'm going to try to overlook little things like this and not think about them and just think about the happiness that I have now. And then it just started coming up more and more. I started learning more about deeper doctrine and hearing things that I had never been taught by the missionaries and things that are just not discussed at the Sunday service. And so finally, I'm like, I can't keep just putting on blinders and ignoring this. I have to look into these beliefs and find out about the deeper doctrine, the whole milk before meat thing. I was ready to learn about the meat. And so I was really bothered by some of the things that I learned, and I tried to just play it off. I had a calling in the church at the time as a teacher in the Relief Society. And then I felt like I was being a fake to the people around me. I wasn't being honest, the people in the church, and I wasn't being true to myself. And so then I decided to leave. So that's just a somewhat short summary about that. So first, I guess if anyone's watching this who doesn't know much about the LDS Church, I just want to give just a brief little history of the church and just kind of summarize the beliefs. So what the church teaches is that the Christian church had fallen away. There was a huge falling away, and that it was restored through this Joseph Smith. He was 14 years old, and he was praying to know what church was true, which church should he join, and then he got the answer from God to join none of them, that their creeds were all an abomination, and that they draw near to him with their lips, but their hearts are far from him. And somewhere after that, he had what's known as the first vision, which is like huge in the Mormon Church, is Joseph Smith's first vision, that he went out to pray in this grove in upstate New York, and God the Father and Jesus Christ both appeared to him, and that God said, "This is my son, hear him," meaning Jesus. And then after that, I believe that happened first, and then the angel Moroni appeared to Joseph and told him about these gold plates he needed to dig up and translate. And so he got the gold plates and translated them. But it's depicted that he translated off the plates to write the Book of Mormon. But apparently he actually used a seer stone and a hat, and that's how he did that. And before the whole Mormon Church thing came out, he was kind of interested in like magic and using a seer stone to find buried treasure. And so then apparently Moroni took the plates away from him after he translated it, so that evidence, so to speak, was gone. But he had some witnesses. A lot of them were like family or friends of family. And so then Joseph would just receive revelation about how to proceed with the church, and he allegedly received revelation that he was supposed to engage in polygamy, and that members of the church were supposed to, just men having multiple wives. And then after he had died, Brigham Young took over, and he kind of expanded the whole polygamy thing. And he said that not only is polygamy like allowed by God, but it's actually a requirement to get into heaven. And so the church teaches that we all pre-existed with Jesus and with a heavenly mother, and that we are the literal spirit children of God and our heavenly mother. And Jesus is also, I guess he would be like our older brother. Maybe he was their firstborn child, I think. I'm not positive on that, but I believe was their firstborn, according to the Mormon Church. And Satan is also Jesus's brother and our brother, because we're all brothers and sisters. And so those of us who are down here, agreed to follow Jesus and his plan. And basically, we're just having a test here while we're on earth. But the goal is to return to Heavenly Father. And there's certain things we have to do while we're here on earth. We have to be baptized by someone who has the priesthood authority, meaning a worthy male of priesthood holder in the Mormon Church. And so basically, if you go and get baptized by a Baptist preacher or some other religion, a non-denominational Christian, that it wouldn't count. It has to be done by through the Mormon Church. Then you have the laying on of hands. You get the Holy Spirit. After you do that, you go have your endowment in the temple, which is really not spoken of. They say it's not secret, it's sacred, but there's some rituals you have to go through. And also you have to get married, and you have to get married in a temple. And in order to live in the celestial kingdom, because there's 3 levels of heaven, celestial, terrestrial, telestial. And so only Mormons who do all these works and ordinances will live in the celestial kingdom and get to live with God the Father and Jesus Christ. And then the people who are still, really good people, maybe really good Christians but not Mormon, they'll get to go to the 2nd level, which is still much more awesome than earth, but it's not as awesome as the highest kingdom, and you won't get to live with God. And then the 3rd one, that's where like the pretty crappy people go, basically. So it's still way better than on earth, but there's no hell. There's outer darkness, which very few people go to. Like, even if you're a murderer, you're probably not going to outer darkness. The only people that would go is like apostates, or people that basically would just spit right in the Lord's face when they see him. So most people, even really bad people, will be going to the 3rd level of heaven. And also another part of the plan, which they just do not tell you when you're taking lessons from the missionaries, is that you can become a god. And men can, and then women would become a goddess. And basically a man can work his way through exaltation to become a god of his own world, like the God of this world. And then he would have a firstborn son with his goddess wife. Well, he would have multiple wives, probably. This will be polygamy in heaven. The church got rid of polygamy in the late 1800s, but it's still going to be allowed in heaven. And so, man, if he does all these ordinances, can work his way to godhood. And the Mormon Church teaches that our God was once a man, and he worked his way up to where he is now. And they have a saying that is, I mix this up. As man is, God once was. As God is, man can become. Um, I had no idea about this when I first started investigating the church, or I wouldn't have joined. And personally, in my family, my mom and stepdad never had been taught this. It's not talked about in the Sunday church sessions. And personally, I believe that if all the beliefs were taught during the investigation period, when you're having lessons from the missionaries, then there'd probably be a lot more people who would say they didn't want to join. That's just my personal belief. And also, I want to be careful not to be offensive. I should have said this at the beginning of the video. My goal is not to offend anybody. I have Mormon friends, and if any of you see this, I don't want to offend you. I don't want to disrespect you. I'm just sharing my story and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I just want to do this in a loving way. And there are so many kind and giving Mormons out there. They're like, some of them are just some of the nicest people I've ever met. And there are some really great things about the Mormon Church, like the family values and just the kindness, how the members are just so willing to help each other and to help people who are not members of the church. And I think their hearts are sincere. They really just want to do the right thing, and they believe this is what they need to do to return to the celestial kingdom. And also they're told that if you don't do these things, you won't get to keep your family together, because some of your family members could make it up there and you not make it up there, and then your marriage isn't forever. So if you're not married in a Mormon temple, that marriage is for this life only, but it won't last in heaven. So they just want to keep their families together and have the saying, families are forever. They're very, very much about family. And so they're just trying to do the right thing, most of them, I would say. So now I want to talk about a little more about some of these doctrines in the church and how I want to compare them to the Bible and some of the reasons why I believe that they do not align with the Bible. And I'm not sure if I should make a part 2 of this video. I don't want it to be too long. So I'm going to go ahead and make a part 2 to this. All right.